It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
The depth of connection is not just about what you bring. I thought that for a long time, that what I brought would be enough because I could teach. But it's about how deeply the other person has explored their own heart and their own soul. And as painful as that realization is, when you accept that, it will hurt at first. I promise you that. I feel like a punch in the face. But once you truly accept it and surrender into that, it can bring you a lot of peace. You're listening to Make Some Noise podcast, episode number 668. Welcome to Make Some Noise podcast, your guide for strategies, tools, and insight to empower yourself. I'm your host, Andrea Owen, global speaker, entrepreneur, life coach since 2007, and author of 3 books that have been translated into 18 languages and are available in 22 countries. Each week, I'll bring you a guest or a lesson that will help you maximize unshakable confidence, master resilience, and make some noise in your life. You ready? Let's go. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. I am so glad that you are here. We are on episode 8 of my 10 episode series that I'm calling Coming Home to Yourself as we lead up to my 50th birthday. That is on April 15th, tax day. That is my birthday. I have been loving these episodes, and I have also been loving the feedback that you've been giving me. I have even friends texting me saying like, hey, I've been listening to your series and it's really great. And I'm really proud of it. And also it's been therapeutic for me to do as well, to sit back and reflect on my own personal growth journey. And that journey has been, I don't know, when I truly dove in around 2006, 2007-ish was when I really put the gas pedal on that. And it's been a long journey, and I'm putting together the main takeaways, the things that I have found to be the biggest lessons that I've walked away with, like the things that if I was just starting out in my journey, I would have liked to hear about. Not necessarily that it's something that you can have huge lessons and integrate them and implement them in your life. Maybe you will. If you do, more power to you. I'm high-fiving you over here. But more so that you can just sort of start wrapping your head around it. Just start thinking about it, thinking about how these things show up in your life, and maybe be more proactive about these particular lessons as you go around the next several years, whether you're my age, a lot younger, or even a lot older. I am hoping that these can be takeaways for you as well. If you are wanting to do some work with me this year, guess what? How to Stop Feeling Like Shit, which was my second book, my most popular book, the book that's been translated into 20 languages. I am doing a program. I'm hosting a curriculum-based program for the first time, actually. I had a very short version that was free that I did in 2018 when the book first came out, but it's since been revised, and I have had some time to sink into it. And I am going to facilitate a group coaching program. If you head on over to AndreaOwen.com/habits, I'm going to be opening up registration fairly soon, within the next couple of weeks. So make sure that you're on that list, because that's going to be where the best price break is for those early adopters, as well as some bonuses over there. So AndreaOwen.com/habits. And as always, there's a worksheet that accompanies, that is the hardest for me. I can tell you a lot about how to live your life, but pronouncing the word accompanying is not my best skill. AndreaOwen.com/668. You will get the worksheet that goes with, I'm just going to say that goes with this episode. The tags along to this episode, AndreaOwen.com/668. And of course, all these links that I talk about in the show are in the show notes. All right. This episode is called Leaving People Behind to Find Yourself. Because no matter how open, how peaceful, or how loving you are, other people can only connect with you at the depth they've reached within themselves. That is a quote, I think, that was first said by Matt Kahn here. The internet is in a little bit of a disagreement there, but it's no matter how open, peaceful, or loving you are, others can only connect with you at the depth they've reached within themselves. This one hits like a ton of bricks, and it's something I feel like we don't talk about enough when we talk about personal growth, and especially when it comes to coming home to yourself. And that's that you will leave people behind. I've seen it talked about a little bit, but I'm not sure if I've seen it talked about how I am going to, the points that I'm going to touch on in this particular episode. I have a feeling this one is going to hit home for a lot of you because when I do Q&As, I tend to, or even if I get emails from y'all, I tend to get some version of the following question. And it's, I want my significant other to be as into personal growth as I am. I am finding that I'm feeling distance between my best friend because I'm on this healing journey and they aren't. What should I do? How do I get this person in my life to come along with me? How do I get them more into reading self-help books or listening to personal empowerment podcasts, et cetera, et cetera? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. The main takeaways are about how grief and boundaries and letting go are really part of the healing process, not a failure of it. And to kind of give you a heads up of how this is going to go, there's 3 parts to this particular episode. I'm going to describe for you what's actually going on, which is some truths about it, which are hard to hear, but I think they're going to resonate a lot with you because you're going to see what I'm going to explain in your life. And sometimes it's hard to actually accept it. Part 2 is about grief, of letting people go. And part 3 is about boundaries, making adjustments in your life to certain relationships, and sometimes goodbyes. Like how do we do that? So buckle up. I'm kidding. I didn't mean for that to sound so dramatic. I don't know. Maybe I did. All right, let's start here. What is actually going on when I'm talking about leaving people behind to find yourself? When you start healing, when we start trusting ourselves, when we start living in alignment with our values, we naturally, this is good news, we naturally start to want and crave depth and authenticity in our relationships because we are starting to find that in ourselves. And we're also, what also tends to happen too is that when you spend time in these parts, if you follow people on social media, especially if you join group programs, I'm hosting Write Your Way Through It as I'm recording this, and the women in the group are all like-minded and like-spirited. So when you start to surround yourself with those people, whether it's virtually or otherwise, like you want more of that, and you start to see that, oh, there are other people like me. And then you start to notice the gaps in your life, whether it's with your romantic partner or your friends, or maybe it's even your family members, your siblings or your parents. And what's happening is that you start to see and accept, and this might take a while. I might be revealing some news here to you, is that the truth of it is that people can only meet you as deeply as they've met themselves. This isn't a judgment on them, and it's not making those people bad. It's not like we're better than they are. It's not making anyone wrong for it. It's just how it is. It becomes, you start to see the energy mismatch in some of your relationships, and you start to understand and see the emotional capacity, the emotional availability, the emotional literacy, truly, of the people around you. And it tells you where someone is on the map. You start to see that. And you also might start to see where they could be. Not necessarily where they should be, because that's not up to us, but we see where they could be. And that starts to feel a little rough sometimes.
P.S. What I'm talking about right now coincides with the episode from 2 weeks ago on healing my relationship with love. I believe that was lesson 6. One of the beliefs that I talk about in there was that, I talked about this on Instagram too. I believed that all of my partners, my romantic partners, and I believed this as as recently as when I left my second marriage in January of 2023. And I was talking to my friend, Brendan Fitzgibbons, who has been on the show a couple of times. And I casually said to him, I honestly think that every man I ever date or have a romantic relationship or marry is going to hurt and disappoint me, because all the men in my life have done that, including my dad, including my brothers, including my first high school boyfriend, like every single one. And he was like, well, that's an interesting belief. And we got to talking about it. And it wasn't until probably a year later, the truth of that is that I had to realize is that of course they did. All people, not just my romantic partners, will continue to do that, because I have expectations based on my own needs. I have expectations that they won't hurt me or leave me, like really deep down. Those are my expectations. And these are human beings I'm talking about. They are going to make mistakes. I cannot control whether they are going to hurt me or leave me. What I finally had to come to realize was what I just mentioned, as well as it was an invitation for me to see, especially my romantic partners, any of them that I planned on having in the future, as mirrors to myself. Like that's where my real work is, to look at like, where am I disappointing myself? Where am I self-abandoning? Where am I hurting myself? As well as accept these people for who they are, trust them as best I can, and also do my own work and not make the assumption or have the belief that people are going to be perfect. And the reason I say that it coincides with that episode, and particularly that belief, is that some of the real work that I've had to do is to, I always tell you, like, I love the expression, and I try to live my life this way, give people the dignity of their own process. This is part of that, is understanding that someone else's process, someone else's growth, evolution, transformation, wherever they are in the depth of their life, their emotional depth, their spiritual depth, is not mine to control. And truly, if we want to get down to the nitty-gritty, when I see their capacity for depth, then it is up to me to decide if I am going to keep pursuing that relationship or stay in the relationship or need to make any adjustments. So a lot of this is about taking your power back, but I'm jumping ahead. All right, I'm jumping ahead. So I'm also going to circle this back to self-abandonment, which I believe was the very first episode in this series. And when we find ourselves in these places, Lord knows I have done it in multiple marriages. The temptation to self-abandon. When someone can't meet you, the old pattern that some of us might have is to shrink, to perform, to fix and control, or even simply to tolerate in the hopes of preserving the connection. That's self-abandonment, kind of in disguise, in a cute outfit disguised, because it's sneaky. If you have to abandon yourself to stay connected, it's not a real connection, it's a performance. If you have to abandon yourself to stay connected, it's not a real connection, it's a performance. And that will truly start to deteriorate your soul. I have done it. And it's one of those things where we start to make excuses and the hope that we hold out that someone else will meet us where we're at. And it just can deteriorate your soul. The solution there is trusting that you are allowed to take up as much space as you need to in a relationship, trusting that you're not too much or asking for too much or too sensitive. What is that quote? It's not that you're asking too much, you're just asking the wrong person. That quote can also kind of be tweaked a little bit to say it's not that you're asking to go too deep, it's that you're asking the wrong person to come with you to that depth. I wish I would have heard that a long time ago. because that would have made more sense to me. The solution is also around trusting your intuition when it says, this isn't for me anymore. And that's a really hard voice to listen to when you have put in a lot of effort and done everything that you possibly can. Along with trusting, when we find ourselves self-abandoning or on the verge of self-abandoning, is to start thinking about surrender and what surrender looks like for you around this topic. Because again, as I said in, I think it's episode 3, I need to write these down. which one was which? The episode I had about surrender, which was one of my 10 life lessons. By the way, I think I've already said this is going to be a book. Surrender becomes a daily practice, and surrender is not about giving up. I will say that until I'm blue in the face. Surrender isn't about giving up. It's giving in to the truth of what's real for you. It's giving into the truth of what's real for you. Surrendering means loosening your grip on the fantasy, on the hope, really, of who you wish someone would be, and instead accepting what is, accepting them for exactly the way they are, accepting that the journey that they're on is perfect for them, accepting that the destiny that is not up to us is theirs and not ours to determine. Okay, we're going to take a quick ad break, but when we get back, I'm going to talk a little bit about the grief of all of this. If you're a woman over 40 dealing with perimenopause, you don't have to accept it as just another part of aging. Did you know there are so many perimenopause symptoms? Hot flashes and night sweats, trouble sleeping, painful sex, vaginal dryness, and libido change, weight and body changes, brain fog and memory lapses, moodiness, anxiety and depression, period problems, hair and skin changes, joint pain, bone loss, and fracture risk. The experts at MIDI Health understand what you're experiencing and know how to help. MIDI clinicians are menopause experts dedicated to providing safe, effective, FDA-approved solutions. Visits and prescriptions are covered by major insurance providers, no membership fees or hidden costs. If you're uninsured or Medicare is out of network under your plan, they also offer affordable cash payment for services. I know for me, as I'm about to turn 50 in 2025, finding a doctor that specializes in perimenopause and menopause is incredibly important. You deserve to feel great. Book your virtual visit today at joinmidi.com. That's joinmidi.com.
Carla only. This episode is brought to you by Walmart. New beauty is in bloom at Walmart, and it's all about springtime radiance. From Drybar, Tula Skincare, and hundreds more available online, Walmart has the premium brands you want and this season's on-trend products for flawless, glossy hair and hydrated skin. Big name beauty brands? Check. The things you love? Check. Find trending spring beauty and all you need to look and feel gorgeous at Walmart, on app and online.
Hear that? It's SpringFest savings calling your name, only at Lowe's. Right now, get a free Select Ego 56-volt battery when you buy a Select Ego trimmer, blower, or mower. Plus, get your choice of any 2 bags of Miracle-Gro organic soil mix for only $16. Shop these can't-miss deals in-store or online today. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 4/2. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. Excludes Hawaii.
Okay, we're back. And I want to talk about, actually, I want to pause before I talk about grief and talk first about giving yourself some grace. Just mention why it's so hard to let go. We resist surrendering to the truth and trusting that things are going to unfold as they should, and trusting that that person's journey is theirs, and trusting that we're allowed to be the deep feelers that we are, that we're allowed to be the seekers that we are, because we still cling to hope. When I meet you all in person, and even when I talk to you online, I find that you are so much like me. Seekers tend to be true optimists, right? We tend to swing towards anything is possible. Just so much optimism and positivity. We love clinging to that hope, and hope that they'll change. Hope that they have it in them. clinging to that hope and optimism that they have you, someone who is well-versed and excited about evolution and transformation, and then they can change because of that. Because to do that, to cling on to that, they'll suddenly meet us in the depth that we're craving. It hurts so much less to stay there and do that versus accepting the person for how they are and accepting that the relationship might have to change in some way, because that is so much and it hurts so much and there's so much grief involved. The grief of accepting that someone is exactly the way that they are and that they are only going to be able to meet you with the depth that they have seen in themselves versus where you are, it can be too much. It can be like the tipping point that just makes you hold on to that optimism and hold on to that hope that they will eventually change and meet you there. And the truth of it is, like, hope can be beautiful. It truly can. And I wish, for you to keep it in all aspects, and at the same time, and I know this from experience, that hope can also be a trap that keeps us stuck in painful dynamics. The reason that I get up on my soapbox about grief is because, and when I talked about the 4 holy emotions, and I don't know what lesson it is. At this point, we know this, right? The 4 holy emotions: rage, shame, terror, and grief. Part of the reason that grief is one of them, and I don't even know if I mentioned it in the episode, is that a lot of times we make grief, we put it in a category where it is, the conditions around it are, somebody has to die. Grief is not just about someone losing their life to death. It's about the death of expectations. It's the death of hopes. It's the death of versions of relationships that no longer align. Sometimes there's grief over the version of yourself that you used to be. At this point, with as I am coming home to myself, I have moments where I grieve both of my former marriages, which were very long relationships. And it's not so much that I'm grieving either of my ex-husbands in that moment. It's that I'm grieving the version of myself that stayed, that self-abandoned because she was trying to get her needs met, because she was holding out hope. That happens too. And I think that grief can look so many different ways, and it deserves to be honored. It is a holy experience to grieve a relationship, to grieve a person that you realize and accept finally that they cannot meet you at the depth that you want them to, that you need them to. It's about grieving versions of yourself that, and I mean, there have been moments where I have wished that I was that former version of myself so I could stay in a relationship. That's all grief, and it all matters. It all needs to be felt. I mean, raise your hand if you've ever grieved the loss of a relationship before you actually left. That kind of like point of no return space where you were like, oh, I know I need to make this decision. And you start the grief process. I did that when I got sober. Before I even got sober, I grieved a life that I had as a drinker, as a young woman that used to drink and party and just get smashed and have the time of her life. I have some great memories during those days, and I grieved those days behind me. That's part of evolution. When you shed your skin, by the way, it's the year of the snake. P.S. 2025 is the year of the snake. It's a year of shedding. When you do that, you will meet grief. 100%. I guarantee it. You will meet grief. So before I close this section out around the grief process of accepting that people are going to only be able to meet you at the depth that they are willing to go, and that sometimes that is not as deep as you are, I'm going to repeat, give people the dignity of their own process. You don't need to drag anyone. You can't drag anyone. I have tried. You cannot drag anyone into the deep end who's committed to staying in the shallow. That's not love. It's control dressed up in a spiritual outfit, in spiritual glitter. It's control dressed up in spiritual glitter, like a Liberace suit. for those of you who are old enough to know who Liberace was. I also want to say, like, yeah, you don't need to drag anyone into the deep end who's committed to staying in the shallow end, and it does not make them wrong for it. I truly just don't think it's everyone's destiny to have whatever soul they showed up in this lifetime to go to certain depths, to go to certain emotional, spiritual, mental depths that all of us have. And it's incredibly painful. P.S. I wanted to tell you that I have a brand new private one-on-one program called Coming Home to Yourself. It's in depth. It is 6 months long. It is transformational. And it is a lot of one-on-one high touch attention from me. And it is curriculum based, but it also includes a lot of open sessions for you to bring whatever it is that you want to work on. Each program is unique to every individual depending on where exactly you are in your journey and where you want to go. So if you want to get more information and maybe fill out an application and have a conversation with me about what that might look like, head over to AndreaOwen.com/you, YOU, AndreaOwen.com/you, because it's all about you. All right, this last part 3, it's about boundaries, it's about adjustments, and sometimes it's about goodbyes. I want to talk just briefly about the 3 different ways that you can make these changes in your life when you realize that, yes, you are in some kind of relationship, might not be a romantic one, some relationship where you're realizing that the person cannot meet you at the depth that you need to be met. You can adjust the relationship. There's adjusting, and that is pulling back or recalibrating. And that just might mean you spend less time with them. It just might mean that it might just mean that you stop trying to get them on board, that you stop being an evangelist. Stop trying to get them to be a part of what you love. Climb down from that soapbox. So that's adjusting a relationship, and that might look different depending on what this person means to you, what role they have in your life. You can also set a boundary. And so that might be about having a particular conversation with them. And maybe it's a conversation that has nothing to do with personal growth. Maybe it's, I can't talk to you about politics anymore. I can't talk to you about blah, blah, blah. Maybe they are someone who invites you all the time to maybe they're deeply into organized religion and invite you to their church that you don't agree with. Maybe that's the conversation that you've tried to compromise with them about what that's going to look like. And maybe that needs to end. That's a boundary. And so saying goodbye is just that, is the obvious. I don't think I need to explain what that is. And my hope is that it's done with love and clarity. For me, both of my marriages ended when I realized that that's where we had ended up, just in 2 very different places. Because as time went on, I think with both of my husbands, like when I met them, we were a really, really great match. 100%. I will die on that hill. Really, really great match. Felt madly in love. And as time went on, evolutions happened, and they didn't happen at the same pace. And so I had to come to a realization that, okay, this is a mismatch and we are not a great match anymore. It doesn't mean that either of us are bad or that one is better than the other. We're just not a match anymore. In my first marriage, when I was much younger, that took me a really long time to realize that was actually the demise of our relationship. For a long time, I was like, well, he had an affair with our neighbor and got her pregnant. That's why we got divorced. It's like, well, but first, there was this other thing that happened. And to be honest with you, I started dating him when I was 17. That mismatch started when I was 19. And my intuition told me back then, girl, you need to leave this young man. He is not for you. And I didn't listen. And I married him when I was 28. And then what ended up happening happened. But even back then, as a 19-year-old girl, I saw it, felt it, and heard my intuition tell me, and I ignored it. I self-abandoned year after year and ended up promising to love him forever in front of God and everybody. And at the time when we split up, obviously neither of us were at a place where we could maturely say with love and clarity, hey, here's where we are. And this is, where we need to say our goodbyes to each other. I mean, I don't mean to get off on a tangent, but I like to do that. I also think that this happens so often in not just our romantic relationships, but in our friendships. We stay for too long. And also, I wish that there was less stigma around people who have, think of Taylor Swift and all the relationships that she's had publicly. And even someone like me who now has multiple divorces under her belt before age 50. And the stigma that comes with that. And that's one of the reasons, I refuse to call either of my marriages failures. First of all, to have a 13-year and then a 16-year relationship with two different people, high five to me that I made that work. Second of all, the lessons I have taken away from those relationships, I fall to my knees in gratitude for these two beautiful human beings that I got to spend that much time with and learn these life lessons that I'm now bringing you today. Nothing but gratitude. Nothing but gratitude. And that has come with age and wisdom and time and all these lessons that I'm talking about on this podcast. But I refuse to accept that these are failed marriages. No, it's not a failure. A failure would be never trying love in the first place because I'm too scared of getting my heart broken, which I have been there. A failure would be never leaving when I realize, or the other person realizes, that we are an energetic mismatch. We are an emotional and energetic mismatch. And then staying, to me, that is a failure. That is complete self-abandonment. That is not trusting yourself. And also not living your life as you want to and you were meant to. That is a failure. Oh, I'm getting mad now. Anyway, I'm not going to get off topic, but we do need to take another ad break. When we get back, I'm going to finish talking about adjustments, boundaries, and goodbyes, as well as wrap up here. So we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it. Guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
So good, so good, so good.
Just in and so good. Thousands of spring finds up to 70% off are at Nordstrom Rack stores now. And that means thousands of fresh reasons to rack.
How did I not know Rack has Adidas?
Vince, Calvin Klein, Rag & Bone?
Obsessed. Why do we rock? For the hottest deals.
Save on Madewell, Kate Spade New York, Sam Edelman, Joe's, and more. Great brands, great prices. That's why you rack.
Okay, before I jump into the topic, before the break, I was going off about everything I've learned from my previous relationships and what a gift it's been, what an absolute gift it's been. And so I have kind of teased out a little bit that Dr. Fox and I, my new boyfriend, which is still, as a 49-year-old, almost 50-year-old woman, sounds so weird to say that, but I will call him that, my new partner. We are going to release, I think it might be a part 1 and a part 2 episode about just that, about what we have learned in our previous long relationships and where it has taken us in our evolution as human beings and how it's created such depth in our own lives and how we are bringing that into this new relationship with each other. We're about to celebrate 7 months. So we are well aware that we are not the experts in terms of This isn't like a, let us show you how to do long relationships because of this long relationship we're in of 7 months. No, this is about us getting humble about all of the bullshit that we're bringing in with us, all the baggage we're bringing into this relationship and how we are navigating that. I like to say, I think I have the map on how to do a really great relationship. I've just never been on the journey. Do you want to come with me? So it'll be from that angle. That is coming up in a few weeks here. We're gathering up all of our podcast equipment to do it together. All right. I just want to say around boundaries, adjustments, and goodbyes, this isn't about cutting people off cold. I feel like I don't need to say that, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's not what I'm saying you should do. If you find yourself in that place where there's an energetic mismatch, unless that's absolutely what's needed, because sometimes that's what's needed. But really what it's about is honoring your healing and not self-abandoning just to make someone else comfortable. It's about honoring your healing and not self-abandoning just to make someone else comfortable. Before we close up, and I should have said this in the beginning, but I want to make sure that I am very clear about what I am talking about when I say, no matter how, the quote, that Matt Kahn quote, no matter how open, peaceful, or loving you are, others can only connect with you at the depth they've reached within themselves. Everything, if you also look at it as, there's a Carl Jung quote, and he says, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Because other people's capacity to meet you with compassion or understanding or patience or vulnerability is limited by their inner work that they have done. So you can offer all the love and light in the world. You can offer all of the self-help lessons that you have learned. But if someone hasn't ventured into their own shadows, if someone hasn't ventured into their own darkness, into their own depth, they will only be able to meet you on the surface. That is true for all human relationships. The depth of connection is not just about what you bring. I thought that for a long time, that what I brought would be enough because I could teach. But it's about how deeply the other person has explored their own heart and their own soul. And as painful as that realization is, I also want to emphasize that when you accept that, it will hurt at first. I promise you that. I feel like a punch in the face. But once you truly accept it and surrender into that, it can bring you a lot of peace. And my hope that it eventually does bring you peace once you accept it and walk through the grief that it's going to bring you. When you realize that everybody's journey is their own. And then my hope is that you can get to a place of gratitude for that and just be like, oh my God, yes, for them. It's theirs. I'm so glad that they get to go on that journey on their own and I don't have to force them. I mean, that's real work. All right. So to wrap it up, again, there is a worksheet that goes with this, some really deep introspective journaling prompts and questions for you to answer about this to help you on your journey. AndreaOwen.com/668. I want to leave you with this, and maybe it's just the question of who in your life do you wish you could meet more deeply? Who in your life do you wish could meet you more deeply? Just start there. And again, the worksheet will have more questions to go with it. Maybe even, here's one more. You can, I'm a big fan of writing letters that you never send. Never send. Always write it from that perspective because it encourages you to be more open and vulnerable. And maybe it's a letter of letting go. Maybe it's a letter of pleading the person to meet you where you are. I mean, it's just out of curiosity. This is curiosity work for you to be able to see what's happening in your head, in your body, in your soul, in your spirit. Maybe it's just to get out the grief or the longing or the wants and needs, the anger, and get the clarity out of your body because it's living in there. And before we close, I just want to reaffirm something to you, and that is that you are not too much. You are moving into places, and maybe you are already in places that some people have yet to go. And that's okay. And please know that you don't need to shrink or perform or please or prove or perfect in order to stay connected. What is going to be the most helpful and the most aligned with your soul is to trust that those were meant for you are in your next chapter and that they will be the ones who will meet you there. Remember, everyone, it's our life's journey to make ourselves better humans and our life's responsibility to make the world a better place. Bye for now. Hey, did you know there's free secret podcast episodes waiting for you that are not part of my regular podcast feed? Yes, AndreaOwen.com/free. And you just sign up. You get a link sent to you. It's very secret. It's like a secret club. We don't have a secret handshake. Don't worry about that. But it's these motivating podcast episodes that I made for you. They're under 20 minutes each. There's 3 of them. They're for wherever you are in your life. So head on over there and grab them. They range from really supporting you and seeing you where you are and being compassionate, all the way to giving you a giant kick in your ass and telling you how amazing and gorgeous and phenomenal you are. So AndreaOwen.com/free and get your hands on that free podcast feed.